You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 4th of February 2026 on Monocle Radio. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting live from Studio 1 here at Midori House in London. I'm Chris Chermak. Coming up on today's program, we've got another takeover from Dubai as the World Government Summit continues. Tom Edwards and the whole Monocle team are there. What's happening today, Tom?
Chris, it has been all action on the second full day of the WGS here in Dubai. The Monocle studio has been buzzing. Here alongside me, our golf correspondent, Inzman Rashid's been joining in for much of it. Inzi, what jumps out at you today? We've seen all sorts.
We have, and we're going to take you from Georgia to Serbia to Latvia and also a bit of colour as well.
More from Inzi and from me and from the rest of the Monocle crew coming up.
Thanks very much, Tom. Looking forward to that. Back in London, we'll also get the business headlines with Yuan Potts, and then the sound of saunas coming to a riverfront in Brooklyn. We'll hear from the founder of the Culture of Bathing Festival in New York City. All that right here on The Briefing with me, Chris Chermak. And a very happy Wednesday to all of our listeners around the world. We are going to start with the World Governments Summit, wrapping up its second day in Dubai, and our team on the ground is standing by, broadcasting from our very own radio studio at the summit. Monocle's head of radio, Tom Edwards, joining us first of all. Tom, a busy second day, interviews. I was hearing Inzi mentioning there from Serbia to Georgia. You've had a busy one.
Chris, it's been absolutely back-to-back, wall-to-wall, call it how you will. A very, very busy day. As you say, the sun just kind of ticking down in the sky. Beautiful late afternoon light. And I should say people will be able to hear more about this, of course, in the days ahead across all of our programming. Make sure they're subscribed to the Monocle Minute as well to read more about it as well in a sort of digital format. But Chris, you're right. That was just a few of the European leaders we had in towards the start of the day. But sort of riding shotgun alongside me, both Inzman Rashid and Monocle's editor-in-chief, Andrew Tuck. And Chris, I'm delighted to say they're both here right now. Inzi, let me come to you first of all. We've been ever so busy, haven't we? I've been running around, you've been tracking people down, getting them on air, then interviewing them. There's an amazing, well, it's kind of a febrile atmosphere, but it's quite measured, and everyone is so excited to talk.
Yeah, it is a really interesting atmosphere here. I've really kind of enjoyed, obviously, speaking to a load of different people from all walks of life. And you know, we have literally spoken to world leaders who sit in the most important of rooms around the whole world, right through to artists and people who are involved in the most unique things, and just all kind of coming together under one roof here in Dubai. It's a really exciting place. But look, let's talk specifically about the world leaders that have convened today. We've seen really high profile players for yet a second day at the World Government Summit, from, as we mentioned, the Prime Minister of Georgia, the Prime Minister of Latvia, the President for Kosovo, the Prime Minister for Serbia as well. There's a lot of organizations here as well. I've just seen the President and former Iraq President for the UNHCR just walking past and speaking to some of the media here. And then, of course, it's important to know in the beginning of the day, we saw His Highness Sheikh Rashid, the ruler of Dubai, walking through, his son, the Crown Prince, and the UAE President walking along with the Serbian Prime Minister earlier, Mohammed bin Zayed, walking past the Monocle Cafe and the Monocle Studio. So yeah, it's been very busy, back to back, but we've had some fascinating conversations.
And Andrew, give me your reflections as well, because you've been obviously moderating some talks as well. It's a kind of a multifaceted approach from you, but there is something, I don't know, is it in the air? Is it in the sunshine? Is it in the blue, the WGS blue of the sky, of which more later? There's a unique quality.
Yes, so I got to be on stage this morning doing two great interviews. The first with Kengo Kuma, the celebrated Japanese architect, and he was conveying his ideas about how we make more human-centric architecture, how architecture can do good for you. It can be invisible, almost in the background. It can meld in with our surroundings, but by embracing nature, it can make us feel better about our lives. And an inspiring conversation. And then after that, I was on with Tikendra Mawakana, who's the co-CEO of Waymo, talking again about urban futures, about what driverless vehicles, autonomous vehicles will do to our cities. And again, a really interesting conversation because there's lots of competitors up against them, from the likes of Tesla, for example. So it was a good, sensible conversation about how that will unfold. And they have their eye on London, for example, from September. In fact, when I was coming to the airport, I saw one of their vehicles mapping the road
I saw one for the first time the other day.
Yeah.
I saw one trundling by. And what strikes me as interesting about that, Andrew, is there's an appetite here to genuinely connect the dots a little bit. I think often it seems that you have a governmental agenda, maybe a big corporate agenda, then there's the imperatives of tech development, AI, and these things are on these multi-tracks. There's a huge appetite here, a real willingness to facilitate not just meaningful dialogue, but it seems a more coherent approach to actually doing these things properly. Now, is that a unique advantage of UAE, being able to do all of those things at once and attack on sort of multiple fronts? I don't know.
I think also, I notice it here at this conference and many other conferences I go to, I think we're at a very, very interesting point. We've had several years now where everybody wanted to pretend they knew lots about AI and just talk about AI and how it's going to upturn the world. I was here a couple of years ago when a gentleman said, in like 2 years' time, 40% of all working class people have lost their jobs. Will have to be like a universal salary in every country. Those things have unfolded at a different pace. And I think actually, although much of the conversations here are underpinned by the world of AI, what we're seeing actually is a bit of a kind of a return to like, what does it mean for people? So the Kenga Kuma conversation, there have been conversations yesterday about why we need to get off our phones. I think lots of the people who have come through here, there's a much more human, a more modest conversation about these impacts. And in fact, we chatted early on to Antonia Zapula, who's from the CEO Thomson Reuters Foundation, who was saying, look, actually, we're only just beginning to get out of companies. What does AI mean to them? And he said lots of people have forgotten they were meant to be a bit more environmentally friendly. They haven't even done a kind of a survey what it will mean for the impact on the environment.
And Lindsay, tell me, what do you think will? It's a bit early to say this, but what in terms of takeaways from this event, there is that appetite for discourse. There's a willingness to converse literally with us, which is great. Some early reflections from you in terms of what you'll take forward. I don't know, in terms of how you approach your work or the kinds of conversations maybe that you want to have.
What Andrew said there is really interesting, is that whilst those conversations have kind of been had where it just feels a bit more human, a bit more thought out and planned out, maybe in comparison to some other conferences, the diplomacy is still very much here as well, and there is still very much conversations around what is going on in the world right now. We've seen, it's so fascinating to see when you walk around the area here in Jumeirah, Min Al Salam and the Madinat Jumeirah, is that you can go into kind of little corners where there's seats, small areas, and you see, the president of Estonia having a conversation with the prime minister of Latvia, and it's happening very much on the sides, but those important conversations are taking place here. Look, when it comes to takeaways, we've seen a number of MOUs being signed here as well. Earlier today, we actually saw the Dubai Loop, which is being built by Elon Musk's The Boring Company, sign an MOU with the RTA saying that we're bringing the Dubai Loop here. A big moment for Dubai to mention that. So look, there are pockets and stages where announcements are being made. I think the big question for World Government Summit will be the conversations that they've had on the stage, and whilst they are interesting and whilst they've delve deeply into, a lot of matters. How do then they take that away and actually implement some of those conversations and make a summit like this actually useful for the long term? Andrew's been coming for a few years now and will have seen actually how it's changed over time, and it has done.
Yeah, can I just say that while you gentlemen have been putting the world to rights in the Caucasus, in the Balkans, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is who I get to interview. I interviewed somebody from Pantone and discovered why she found the perfect yellow for a P chart for the National Health Service in the UK. I met a man who he really looks like Tom Cruise, and he spun it into a huge business, and there was philosophy, and there was Tom Cruise essentially in front of my eyes. And then I just got accosted by a gentleman who happens to be Japan's biggest TV magician. And he did a trick for me there and then, and he's coming to be interviewed tomorrow. So I'm kind of like, I don't know, what does that mean about my journalistic credibility? Probably zero, but I'm bringing some levity here as well.
Absolutely not, Andrew. That's robust. I was going to ask you both quickly just to look ahead as the clock ticks past 10 past the hour. We're obviously hosting or co-hosting an event tonight, which is very exciting. Andrew, I think you've got some more panels and things to do tomorrow, or?
Unfortunately, I have a big session, another big architecture in the plenary hall at 9:15. So if you see me going too close to the rosé, give me a kick.
And Izzy, what are you most excited about this evening? Well, this will be fun. Monocle's in Dubai tonight. Some of your pals will be there. But...
Yeah, a lot of Monocle pals will be there. It'll just be fascinating conversation, to get people all around, have a chat. Our editorial director, founder and chairman, Tyler Brûlé, around as well. We'll just have a good night, and I think a well-earned drink as well after what's been a busy day in the sun in Dubai.
I don't want to hand back to you, Chris, just with the idea that we're all off to go and enjoy rosés in the evening sunshine, although that is going to happen. Enzi, don't say it, don't confirm it on air. But Chris, lots of hard work, plenty to enjoy, and I said, just to remind listeners, we'll be featuring lots of the incredible people we've spoken to on our programming in the days ahead. But London, for now, back to you.
Thanks very much, Tom Edwards and the crew. Lots of interesting stuff happening at the World Governments Summit. I hope you all enjoy the party over there tonight. Not too much, because there will be plenty more happening tomorrow as well. The final day of the World Governments Summit over there. We'll have more across our shows for you to listen to as well from the team there. But for now, here on Monocle Radio, it's time to join Carlotta Rebello with the day's other news headlines.
Thanks, Chris. The US will host more than 50 countries for talks aimed at boosting their access to critical minerals. The move is a bid to loosen China's grip over vital industry inputs and global supply chain controls. The gathering comes after President Donald Trump launched a strategic stockpile of critical minerals called Project Vault earlier this week. A Japanese man has appealed his life sentence for fatally shooting former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, according to local authorities. Tetsuya Yamagami sent shockwaves through the East Asian country in July 2022 after he shot and killed its longest-serving Prime Minister during a campaign speech. And China is set to ban hidden door handles on all cars sold in the country, becoming the first nation to target the feature. The new policy states that all automobiles sold must have a mechanical release feature for both interior and exterior handles. The Ministry of Industry and Information Technology cited their inconvenience and safety issues as reasons for the move. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks very much, Carlotta. It's time now on the show to get the latest business headlines with Bloomberg's Yuan Potts. Yuan, always good to have you on the show. And we're going to start with a bit of a look at how the markets are doing. Shares in general are trading close to record highs, but, within that, there's always lots to discuss. And in this case, there's been a big sell-off in software stocks. What's happening?
Hello, Chris. Yeah, another positive day for stocks, but the story at the moment is one of rotation. A big churn between sectors, with economically sensitive stocks, otherwise known as cyclicals, doing better than others. And there's been a bit of a rotation out of the mega tech stocks, those stocks we've talked about so many times, which have been doing so well in recent years. But the really big sell-off we saw yesterday was in software companies. Now, the trigger was a new legal automation tool from AI company Anthropic. It's a plugin which helps speed up contract review and other dull legal jobs. Now, the fear among investors is that a whole host of valuable and very profitable software companies, not just in legal services, but also in things like accountancy, are about to have their lunch eaten by the bots. Now, the sell-off saw IT services sub-index fall by 8%, its worst day since March 2020, when the market was worrying about something completely different. Now, steep declines for the likes of credit and marketing services company Experian, that was just one example. But in total, $285 billion wiped off the value of companies in the sector.
Interesting to hear such a big wipe off. I mean, do you get the sense, Yuan, then that are investors kind of looking for the next almost casualty of AI and the bots? Is that what's happening here? It's all of a sudden kind of hit the software, but of course it could hit so many different sectors.
Well, I think the market, after all the AI euphoria, which I have to say is still continuing to a certain extent, I think the market's starting to think now that there are going to be winners and losers from all this spending, the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars being invested in AI. We know that for certain companies like companies involved in the power supply, people generating electricity, cable companies, the companies that install the data centers, all those companies building the picks and shovels, if you like, they are clearly going to be winners over the next couple of years because that investment is coming, whether we like it or not. But as to what that investment sort of results in, there are definitely going to be losers from all this. And I think we're just starting to think about who's going to lose from all of this. Of course, there's been much debate about who's going to lose their jobs, and it will change the labour market a lot. But we just don't quite know in what ways. But certainly software is being seen as an early loser. But of course, there may be winners and losers within the software subcategory as well. So it's really fascinating to keep an eye on all of this.
Well, speaking of losers, at least for today, there's another company that has done well in the past but is seeing a sell-off today, the Danish drug maker Novo Nordisk. Why are they plummeting?
Yeah, not so long ago, Novo Nordisk was the most valuable company in Europe. It's the Danish pharma giant behind the blockbuster weight loss drugs Ozempic and Wegovy. But its fall from grace among investors has been really quite dramatic. The shares are slumping as much as 20% in Copenhagen early this morning, dropping the company out of Europe's top 10 most valuable companies. Now, the trigger was a gloomy sales forecast, not the first, I should say, much worse than was expected. Novo says that sales will fall by as much as 13% this year. Now, part of the reason for that is pressure from Washington for lower prices. The US is by far the world's biggest market for obesity drugs, and Trump is on the warpath when it comes to drug prices. From next year, there's going to be steep discounts for Novo's drugs sold to Medicare, the federal health insurance program for the elderly. And looking elsewhere in the world, Novo's patents for Ozempic and Wegovy are starting to expire beginning this year with Canada and Brazil. And that's before you consider all of the other companies trying to muscle in on such a lucrative market. It is all a very busy inbox for the new chief executive of Novo Nordisk.
Well, they're going to have to find some other drugs for the future. Yuan Potts, Bloomberg reporter, thank you very much for joining us. As always, you're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. You're back with The Briefing. I'm Chris Chermak. Now, sauna culture is very much a thing here in Europe, particularly in the Nordics and the Baltics, but it is about to cross the Atlantic in a major way. We're headed to New York now. We're just across the water from Manhattan in Brooklyn's Williamsburg, starting next Thursday, the 12th of February. New York's first outdoor sauna festival will be taking place on the waterfront. It is known as the Culture of Bathing Festival, and it's led by Robert Hammond, who is also co-founder of the Highline and president of Therme US. Robert joins me now right here on the show. Good morning to New York. Robert, I love the Highline, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me a bit about the culture of bathing in general before we get to the Culture of Bathing Festival in New York. Yeah. I mean, it's not really a thing to swim in the Hudson, but what do you have there?
Hey, you can swim in the Hudson. Sometimes if it hasn't rained. But no, so the names, even hearing you say it out loud is sort of funny because telling me about the culture of bathing and this culture, we really chose that name because we're not a normal product. We're not looking to have a permanent facility. What culture of bathing is, we started as a platform to promote, sort of cheerlead and chronicle this new wave of bathhouses spreading all over North America and all over the world, but really a lot in North America. And so that's what it, and we purposely wanted the word culture in there because we want to celebrate the culture of bathing, but also bring culture outside into the bathhouse. And so then we had this opportunity because we got this amazing space in Domino Park with incredible views of the city to do this pop-up. And then we just, going back to it reminds me of my early Highline days, and we sort of went crazy. And then it quickly, I think, is going to be the largest urban pop-up sauna village ever. So that was a long answer to your quick question.
Well, it sounds amazing. And before we do tell us more about what we're going to have at the festival, just tell us also about that revival in bathhouses in New York. Why the interest? What does it say about New York and New Yorkers and kind of what they want out of life, really, that they're now looking for bathhouses for maybe a bit of calm?
Yeah. So I just, for fun, I did a Google map, and saved all the bathhouses. I thought I'd been to all of them, but then I realized there's over 30 of them in New York City. And I don't think it's a trend, in some ways this is just I don't think it says anything about New Yorkers in a way. I think this is like a universal need, to me, if something's been around for 5,000 years, it's probably not a trend. But why in New York? I just think because there's a lot of people willing to try stuff and a lot of creativity, a lot of small businesses. I think why now? I think ironically, it started before COVID, but then I think people thought it was going to be over after COVID but COVID actually, because people's concerns, it's actually really safe in a sauna. But what happened was people got more interested in their health and they got lonelier. And so I think those are the two things driving this, the loneliness epidemic and sort of this interest in wellness. My focus, I think people come, maybe they come for the longevity, maybe they came because of the influencer, maybe they came because they saw the lighting was amazing. But to me, the reason they stay is the social and spiritual benefits. And that's what we're trying to promote overall in culture of bathing.
Well, tell me more about that, because that is an interesting aspect of this, isn't it? And people wouldn't necessarily realize that if they weren't in a sort of sauna bathhouse culture before this. Because certainly in Europe, if you go to Estonia, you go to Helsinki, or even I've been in Iceland, like when you're in these sort of warm waters, it's a community thing, right? It's not just about the bathing. It's about a coming together and, as you say, tackling even loneliness. Like, is that something that's catching on in New York?
Yes. And when I saw, there's a guy, Mikkel Aland, who wrote this book called The Sweat in the 70s, sort of like the godfather of bathing. And he said there's three things that make a good sweat. The physical, that's like having the right heat in the building. But then the other two are the social and spiritual. And I just want to, when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about Jesus. Spiritual, I just mean a connection with yourself, others, and nature. And nature is the water, the heat. And there's not that many places where you can have all three. And that makes the spiritual connection better. If you feel great, you're going to have a different connection with the people you're with, whether they're your family, whether they're your friends, or people you don't even know. I mean, and so that's the through line to the High Line to me is, when I thought, why did the High Line become so successful? Why are cities doing them all over? And I realized it's like social infrastructure. There's a guy who wrote a book on it, Eric Kleinenberg. And I realized, and this is obvious, cities need libraries and parks, but there was even more of a need for it now. And I think this is fulfilling that same thing, this kind of social infrastructure. And that's why cities literally have had them. Rome, I always thought Rome had one giant one and that was it. There was 8 of those huge and then 800 smaller ones for a city of 1 million. So to me, that's more where we're going, or I hope so.
Well, tell me more then about that and your kind of influences. You mentioned Rome there. I was talking about, obviously, you say, going back 5,000 years of sauna history, Helsinki, Tallinn in Estonia, Iceland, so many different places. Did any of those come into your idea for this festival? Because when I look at some of the pictures, at least, of what this is going to look like, it certainly gives those kinds of vibes of Nordics and Baltics and what I've seen there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so we're not going to be the biggest sauna festival, because the biggest, I think, is in northern Finland. And this is really common. Oslo has an amazing urban, now it's permanent, called SALT. And actually one of the architects of that giant sauna is building a portable sauna for us that's going to fit 80 with views of the river. And then the company I work for, called Therma, is a European company. Work for the US division, and we have these huge facilities. We have 5 million visitors a year. But in Romania, in Bucharest, we've held the largest sauna festival for a few years running. So that was also really influential. And Cosmin, the guy that runs that, is coming over here. He's bringing over a dozen different sauna masters and Aufguss masters, which is a kind of sauna ritual and ceremony that we're going to bring here.
So is that about kind of teaching Americans as well in order to reintroduce this even further? As you say, there are only 30 bathhouses in New York, but do New Yorkers and do Americans still have something to learn about sauna culture that they will learn at this festival from the Aufguss masters and others?
Yeah, there's sort of this debate going on right now in our very small world about whether Americans are doing sauna right, and to me, what we're trying to do with culture bathing is I think the U.S. and North America, we're developing our own sauna culture that is going to be different from Europe. So I hope we learn and adapt and evolve, and we don't need to do it just like a Finn does. But I think we have a lot to learn. A lot of our saunas aren't very good, so I do think we have a lot to learn, from them. And hopefully the other thing we're gonna introduce is wood-fired saunas. Most people in New York have never been in a wood-fired sauna, which is really, really different and special.
So, Robert, then just give us finally the layout for this festival from the 12th. If people come to the Culture of Bathing Festival, what are they going to find there?
Yeah. You are going to find almost 20 different saunas, all different sizes, all different heats. So if you like it really hot, we're going to have those. If you're not so sure, if you're a first timer, it's going to be outside. So you're going to get in that sauna, get really warm. And the really fun thing about doing this is after you get out of the sauna, you can stand outside in the cold and your body steams. But we're also going to have warming tents. We're going to have a really warm lounge. And then we're doing over 1,000 different events inside and outside the sauna. Some are free, most of them are inside the sauna. And so you're going to we're partnering with Pioneer Works, which is a really great cultural institution in Brooklyn, to do some really interesting non-sauna programming in the sauna, singers, musicians. And so what I hope is even people that have done a lot of saunas, it's going to be really unexpected and sort of unusual. That's what I hope. People leave and be like, wow, this is not what I expected. And the other thing I can guarantee is you're going to really sleep well that night.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure everybody will. The Culture of Bathing Festival is on in New York, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, from the 12th of February to the 1st of March. Robert Hammond, co-founder of The Highline, president of Therma Group US in New York, and creator of the Culture of Bathing Festival. Thank you very much for joining us. That's all the time we have for this edition of The Briefing. It was produced by Monica Lillis. Our researcher was Annalise Maynard, and our studio manager was Elliot Greenfield. I'll be back with The Briefing tomorrow at the same time. I'm Chris Termack. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.